Well, yesterday was interesting. I was working on a Lego feature that will be going on Patreon tomorrow. And all of a sudden, while I'm feeding the cats, I get a message from 2 Cents Toys, one of my favorite YouTube channels, and he says, hey, have you seen Articulated Ninja's new video? And I said, no, I haven't seen it yet. He said, you gotta watch it. You gotta watch it right now. So I tidied up with the cats and I went over and I watched the video, and I was blown away, not only by the whole video, but especially when it hit around the 20-minute mark. And that's, I have to make this video to thank Articulated Ninja for the overwhelmingly kind visual metaphor that he made in regards to the mission statement that I've had for my channel for a really long time. And I was amused by the fact that as of this morning, after I had thanked Articulated Ninja on Instagram and some other portals, that a scant few people, but there's always a few, were throwing their barbs at me. Oh, Michael, are you so pathetic that you need validation this badly? It amazes me how so many people in our toy community demand positivity all the time. And then when you give it, they tell you you're pathetic. They tell you you're cheesy. And what it boils down to for me is the thing I've been saying for years and years now, which is that people who are the positivity police are the most mean people on the internet. Because what they want is they want you to be positive about this stuff. And if you're not, they'll be the most ruthless, repugnant, mean, negative people toward you and other people that don't agree with them like nobody you've ever seen. I don't go on other people's YouTube channels and leave negative comments. I don't. And while I know that's never going to stop, it is a kind of hypocrisy. Because if you want to contribute to positivity, then you've got to live the truth and be the change that you want to be. And that's something that Articulated Ninja did with this video about the toy collector community in general. He addressed a lot of that stuff right at the beginning. And for anybody who hasn't seen Articulated Ninja's YouTube channel, you should really check out the latest video, not because of the very nice visual metaphor that he created at the end that has to do with RetroBlasting, but for the first 20 minutes especially, because that first 20 minutes is reiterating a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about together on this channel for the last 5 years. Just as a quick aside to address this idiot commenter's thing about, do you really need validation that badly? It's a really dunderheaded thing to say, because in every human being's life, every human being deserves validation for something at some point, somewhere. When validation became a bad thing, I'm not sure. But some people just have this misguided idea that they deserve validation all the time, but these other people, no, you don't get validation, and you shouldn't look for it. Wow. I mean, I guess we're not going to give out medals at the Olympics anymore. So I find it hilarious how just awfully negative a lot of these positivity police and the people that accuse you of being cynical in the toy community because you said that the ball joints on the necks of this ninja figure hypothetically isn't very good, and they'll roast you for that. They're roasting you with negativity because you weren't positive enough. #irony. Only a Sith deals in absolutes is a statement that is an absolute. That's literally the conundrum these people live in all the time. And just to give you a little context for what Articulated Ninja was talking about, it was the haslab that's been talked about recently on a lot of YouTube channels. The haslab regarding this Ghost Rider Charger car. I mean, it's no surprise here for anybody who's followed RetroBlasting for a long time that, of course, I think the haslab is overpriced. And of course, I'm going to go a step farther and say, like I said back in 2018, haslab should never have been entertained. And now a lot of people are starting to figure that out with this latest Ghost Rider thing. It started to tumble forward, no pun intended, with the Sentinel having the knee problems, the Rancor being a misfire, the Riva lightsaber being a misfire. And yeah, there were some other successes in there like that Proton Pack and the Sky Striker and all that stuff, the His Tank, whatever. But they're all overpriced. All of them. All of them. And they have the same problem that the sail barge did, which is you're letting them sit on your money for a year and you're letting them take an exorbitant amount of money for a thing that isn't worth that much. Now, some people, friends of mine, guys like Ninja, they talk about how they freely admit that they would jump in on certain haslabs because of what it was, and they knew that it was overpriced and they had to do it anyway. And as much as I respect that statement for its honesty, I'm going to say something that probably a lot of you aren't going to like, but you know what? I'm used to that by now. We teach corporations how to treat us. There's this phrase that's been going around for quite a while. The phrase, no one's forcing you to buy it. If you don't like it, don't buy it. And that is a tactic that is used up and down the toy collector community food chain on social media. It's used by the Rando in the Facebook group, and it's used by some of the top dog toy channels to shut down arguments about, criticisms of these haslab projects and other items. But one of the things that's starting to crack the foundations of all this recently, and the unity, the lockstep of the Hasbros is starting to crumble away, is the price hikes. Because the price hikes aren't just happening with an inflated Ghost Rider car. They're happening across the board multiple times with their retail stock as well. Their Marvel Legends, their Black Series, all of their standard stuff has gone up like 3 times in the last 18 months. The first time it was because they blamed COVID. Now everybody's wondering, well, why are they continuing to hike up the prices? Hiking up prices while at the same time planning to put out things that nobody in their right mind would want, like stormtroopers in Christmas-themed armor. You're dealing with a company that has taken its market research from 4 years of a community that fed the dragon called haslab. And if you think they don't study those numbers, they do, because that's how they determine what the next price tag is going to be for the base tier product. And what you guys have taught them is that you're willing to pay out the ass to get something. And if they make it nostalgic enough or whatever have you, however you want to define it, they already know now, thanks to haslab, that you will pay through the nose to get it. Oh, sure, they fumbled a little bit, like with the Rancor on the tiers and everything like that, because things continue to trip up. And it looks like they're tripping up with this Dodge Charger because people are finally starting to wake the hell up. But unfortunately, you guys who, and again, I'm not trying to denigrate anyone here, all right? But I am trying to get you, now that you guys are waking up, I'm trying to get you to consider some other possibilities. That ship about haslab has already sailed. There's no stopping it now that it's started. That happened with the sail barge. We're done. Like, it's out there. But now it's about mitigating that damage. And unfortunately, because of so much FOMO, fear of missing out on some of these items, and people buying them practically in bulk, you have taught Hasbro that you are happy to be abused. And this is where the disingenuousness comes in with the statement, no one's forcing you to buy it. If you don't like it, don't buy it. Because I guarantee you that some of these superfluous price hikes that have happened since the COVID price hike on standard figurines and Marvel Legends, Black Series, all that stuff, it's all been inspired by the data that they have gathered from HasLab and Hasbro Pulse exclusives and all those other things that everybody buys into real quick and sells out even though they're inflated in price. We can actually get them to eat more of this cost. We can raise this rate by a lot, because look at the numbers we've done in our market research from our proprietary portals. It says we can do this. Because what the MBA is all about getting somebody to pay as much as possible for something while you put as little investment into it as possible to get the maximum profit return. Now, the cynical people out there might say, well, yeah, that's business. Yes, but there comes a point where it's predatory. And people are starting to wake up and realize that not only are these price hikes, these recent ones, very predatory and unmotivated, but this Ghost Rider car is the smoking gun for it. Now, last year, I ended up getting somebody on the record on live camera who was, touting themselves as a toy industry insider. And I held them, to task when they said predatory business practices are a good thing. And I said, can you please repeat that? And they repeated it. Confirmed it. So when you say nobody's forcing you to buy it, if you don't like it, don't buy it, that doesn't mean that it's not going to actually affect the people that didn't buy it.
What happens to one of you will affect the other. You must understand this.
Your actions toward HasLab do have an effect on the broader toy community. I'm not saying you're the devil. I'm not saying that you're a criminal. I'm not saying that, you should be horsewhipped in the street for buying from HasLab, especially at this point, because whatever. But your actions have effects, consequences, things that you're not anticipating. I'll give you an example. Back in the day when the Model T was starting to roll off the assembly line at Ford, what if you were that person that said, I don't want to buy a car? And somebody said, well, no one's forcing you to buy one. If you don't like it, don't buy it. But then all of a sudden, society forms itself, reorients itself around automobile transportation. And even though you didn't buy a car, you didn't want a Model T, you did not want motorized transport, suddenly the local government's coming to you and saying, we're building a road through your farmland. And by the way, we're now going to have zoning issues. So like you can't have a general store here near the subdivision anymore. The closest grocery store is going to be this far away. So now you're going to need to, either take a bus, which is motorized, or get a car, or do something to go to the grocery. There are many ways that the thing you're not forced to buy in life can affect you. So for all of those people out there who are like, no one's forcing you to buy it. If you don't like it, don't buy it. I'm telling you, Hasbro didn't come to these price hike decisions in a vacuum. Oh, sure, the first one might have been COVID, kind of like Mattel did. But the subsequent ones, mercenary. And I'm not the one screaming first that it's without justification. I tried to tell you guys this years ago. Your actions have consequences that affect the whole toy community every time you make a decision. Especially when you make a decision where you say, yeah, I know I'm getting, raked over the coals price-wise on this purchase, but I just can't help myself. And that goes into a little docket with a sales number, and Hasbro puts that into their market research report. Now, it's cause and effect. I know there have been some people out there who've accused me of trying to disguise opinions as facts. I'm not giving you a fact here. I'm giving you a cause and effect conjecture that is not outside the realm of possibility, especially when nobody can figure out why Hasbro has been, raising these prices the last few times. That's not me saying it. That's all these other YouTube channels lamenting it.
Perspective.
Sometimes you shouldn't denigrate people for twisting and turning the Rubik's Cube, because these companies aren't transparent. But at the same time, some of their moves are, and it's a process of elimination. I'm not going to apologize for turning the Rubik's Cube and thinking about this stuff. I'm also not going to accept being accused of trying to purport opinions as facts and thought conjecture as facts when I haven't. Now, as far as everything goes with the Ghost Rider car, I know that the backers have been dropping, and, good on the community for finally waking up. Good on the community. I'm genuinely touched by the sentiments expressed by Articulated Ninja and then a number of other people last night who sought me out and communicated with me in the wake of that video. It is extremely humbling, and it's extremely nice to be recognized, because for the people who said today, why do you need that validation? It's so pathetic or whatever. One, I didn't ask for this video, but I do genuinely appreciate it, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Two, I know that in the video, Articulated Ninja assures me that back in 2018 I wasn't alone. And while I might not have been alone as far as other people thinking the same thing about HasLab, as far as active people with agency in the YouTube space, other content creators, I was very much alone. Because nobody else was stepping up at that point and saying what they're starting to say en masse now. And that doesn't mean that he's incorrect. I just simply mean there is a nuance there. And it was not easy because, as you guys remember from the sail barge incident, everything got, the accusations got extreme quickly, and like you couldn't believe what the accusations were. Con man, perpetuator of a hoax. I ended up in Australia with that sail barge, and then they said that was fake. I mean, it's crazy. These are what the Hasbros, these are the tactics the Hasbros like to use. And then, the very next year it was the whole G.I. Joe classified thing, and it started all over again. And now here people are paying $400 for a HISS tank, and wondering why their action figures are now going to be $35 a piece, and possibly only on Hasbro Pulse, according to the brand manager for G.I. Joe. It looks like G.I. Joe itself is going to become an online-only thing, possibly. And you sit back and you say to yourself, in my position, you go, well, this is why you don't feed the beast like this. And this is why you step up early and you say what's on your mind, and you don't follow the crowd. And but the way that I kind of was feeling about that at the time, for anybody who is interested, is that because Articulated Ninja's visual metaphor at the end was of this video, and I encourage you to watch it. I've put the link in the description below. It involves Avengers Endgame, and it's very touching and everything like that. But if I may borrow his metaphor for the purposes of a word picture for everybody here, I couldn't go into a Facebook toy group, a message board, anywhere without getting absolutely, run out of town. because of what I said about HasLab and what I said about the G.I. Joe Classifieds Wave 1. Now, you know, that's the way society works. The rabble forms, they all get emotional and then they, you know, whatever. But that is a reality. And to deny the other person's reality on the other side of that, because you weren't experiencing that, is pretty crappy. So for quite a while, from like 2019 all the way through 2021, it was me waking up to cloned accounts, trolls, harassment, people telling me that they were going to harass me, and I quote here, "I will hound you until the day you die." That was some guy that was angry about my G.I. Joe classified opinions.
Do you really want to punch your way out of this one?
It was and remains extreme. So when nobody else is saying anything about it, it starts to be like, well, yeah, I'm by myself. You get used to it, but it's not fun.
I could do this all day.
One of the biggest toy channels at the time, who for purposes of courtesy will remain nameless, during the whole sail barge incident, one of the biggest toy channels out there messaged me privately saying that they really wanted to help out Brent, the guy who had his sail barge stuck in the United States, and wanted to donate money. And said they couldn't donate much, but they wanted to donate some. And at the time, I was getting blasted as, you know, a con man, and it was a hoax. And of course, it has since all borne out that that YouTuber was actually doing all that to try and get clicks. Funny aside for that, there's a lot of people that accuse me of being negative to get clicks. That's the dumbest thing ever, because all of the biggest toy channels who are like hucksters for the big toy companies and who don't shout out or give credit to any of the smaller channels in our community about anything, they're totally out for themselves. They're all super positive and pandery, and they have the biggest audiences. So everybody that comes to me saying, you just made that video with that negative opinion to get clicks, it's like, wow, you're a dumbass. You're a dumbass. Because I'm 10 and a half years into this channel and I still haven't cracked 100,000 subs. I can name 3 or 4 toy channels that came up years after me that were just as pandery and as the other top dogs that were already in existence, and they've already shot past me like a rocket. I'm not resentful of it because I couldn't sleep at night if I acted like those channels. The point is, you guys got to wake up and realize that saying to somebody, oh, you're being negative to get clicks, is stupid. Like that shows no looking at the facts and then coming to logical conjecture at all. Anyway, back to the story. So this YouTuber reached out to me and he was like, hey, I want to really help out Brent if I can, and I don't have a lot of money, but just let me know what the shipping total is because I'd like to chip in because a lot of people wanted to chip in. Well, I was being called a con man and a hoaxer and all this stuff, and being the kind of personality I am, I decided, you know what? In the background, I'm going to just not, everybody's trying to be generous here and help, but no, I'm going to give a big middle finger to this bomb-throwing YouTuber by shouldering the entire thing myself and flying it myself to Australia. And after I got back and I did the video, part of me in the back of my mind had been hoping that because this YouTuber was keeping such a close watch on this, allegedly, because they were private messaging me about the situation, that they would have shared that video that came out. But they didn't. They didn't share the video. There was a conversation later I had with this YouTuber where we were talking. This was about a year later. Maybe like 8 or 9 months later. It's hard to remember. And we were talking about everything going on in social media with toys and stuff. And I happened to mention, I said, it was a real bummer. I said, I went and I did all that stuff, and then I got back and I said that video really didn't go anywhere. I said I was really hoping that people would, People say they love the positivity. They say they love the positive stories. And unfortunately, nobody really was interested in the positive result of that and the positive video that came out from it. Nobody really seemed to care, which is a trend that happens, by the way. People who are the positivity police, they claim they want positive, 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 positive all the time. They want the feels, the feels, the feels, the feels. But when I put out a video that's positive, like the sail barge delivery or something like that, nobody actually really shows up to watch it. It's not that they only watch videos where I'm critical of something, but when truly positive things are produced, like that are sentimentally positive from beginning to end, they don't show up. Well, when I told this YouTuber that and I didn't single this YouTuber out in the moment. I just simply said, I put that video out there and nobody shared it. And they looked at me and they were like, "Oh, that sucks." And it was like there was no connecting going on there. There was the wiring was completely either crossed or they were just dodging, because they have a relationship with Hasbro as well. So, of course, they're not going to risk their chummy relationship with Hasbro to signal boost a really positive story about collectors helping one another. They're not going to do it. So it was this series of I'd wake up in the morning and I'd find myself dragged into another fight by somebody, whether it was a G.I. Joe classified troll or, somebody who was mad about my haslab comments or, whatever. And I continued to recuse myself more and more from the larger community until I made the statement that I don't join Facebook groups or message boards anymore because they're all filled with hateful, awful, mean-spirited people.
That shield doesn't belong to you.
This is Mr. Negativity telling you that. That's what they love to call me, Mr. Negativity. And I'm telling you right now, So yeah, when I saw Articulated Ninja's video, it really felt like, to borrow the metaphor from Avengers, it really felt like, I'd been kicked out because I didn't want to sign the Accords.
You're gonna come with us now because it's us.
And now all of a sudden, here comes Articulated Ninja, and he's pointing and saying,
"Get this man a shield."
And that meant a lot to me. It really did, and I'm not embarrassed to say it. It meant a lot. Because it indicated to me, and I'm not going to let people try and embarrass me or shame me like the guy saying you need validation, from stopping me from saying this, because I want to say this, and I want Articulated Ninja to hear it, is that when I saw the end of the video, what I was seeing and hearing was somebody had stepped up and said, "Michael, RetroBlasting does have a place, and it does belong, and we don't want you out on the periphery, and we accept you, and we're not going to kick you out into the edges of, outside the village. You're not off the team." And that means the world to me. Like, it really, really does. It reinvigorates me. It makes me excited for the content that I'm working on. It also makes me feel justified in some of the reactions I've had in the last few years to the modern toy machinations that have been happening.
I'm not looking for forgiveness, and I'm way past asking permission.
And it galvanizes me to continue making content in those areas, not totally abandoning that content. In other words, continuing to comment on Hasbro and Mattel and things like that, and crowdfunding and all that kind of stuff, because it is important. There's some people who believe that all I do now is do negative videos, which couldn't be farther from the truth. I've mapped that out as of the beginning of this year when I did my 2021 year in review. And I've done a lot of videos this year that I've been very proud of that have nothing to do with toy industry commentary. And some that do have to do with that I'm also proud of, like the Eternals video. Very proud of that video. But I'm really, really humbled and overwhelmed and proud of the work I've done today because of the very kind and overwhelming sentiment from a ninja. And he said with that video, you don't have to stand out here alone and be on your own. And then the comments that were flooding in from other YouTubers at that point, I think many of which have created their channels in the last 4 to 5 years, which is very telling. But I just wanted to just thank you again, Articulated Ninja. Thank you. And I'm going to continue to make the content that I make. And now I feel confident and I don't feel like I'm just out there making it and feeling like a crazy person or feeling like, am I, in a bizarro universe? Now I know that I'm not. And I can't tell you how valuable that is. We're coming up on 100,000 subscribers. This couldn't have come at a better time for my headspace. And 2023 is almost upon us. And there's a lot of people now who I feel like I can associate with and have candid conversations with, and that is invaluable. Content creators and other people about this stuff, and it's huge. It's huge to feel that way. So yeah, it's going to be, I hope as a toy community, we're all going to be taking a much more responsible, honest, transparent, and harder look at the decisions made by the Hasbros, the Mattels, the NECAs, the Super 7s. And, there was a comment made a few days ago where somebody tried to say that there were two camps. One camp was the camp of people who said, we just want to hold companies accountable. And then the other camp is people who are like, I'm just so grateful for all the positive toys that we've gotten in this golden age of action figure making. And I just really want to thank all the, and it's like, so one camp is really loaded with lofty sentiment. And the other camp is just, the way they framed it was just grumpy. And I told the guy, I was like, holding companies accountable who take your money on a regular basis is not a bad thing. In fact, that should be encouraged. There is no obligation, as I've said before in the To Be Fair video, there is no obligation to prostrate yourselves before these big companies. There's no obligation to bow to them and kiss their feet because they're taking your money. They should be kissing your feet. Why has this gotten so backward? Why are people always now worshiping the companies and, oh, thank you, I know it's overpriced, but thank you for making it at all. I'll definitely go on a ramen diet for a while in order to get this thing. You don't owe them that kind of ass kissing. Don't do it. And I'm glad to see that so many channels now, thanks to Articulated Ninja's video, because he highlighted so many channels I wasn't aware of. Because I've been on the outside at this point for the longest time. I haven't been in these groups. I haven't been on these message boards. I've just been making my content and hoping for the best and just continuing to be honest. And now all of a sudden I find out there's this whole community of people that sprung up that are like, we're not going to take it anymore. And I'm like, great. So for all the people out there that want to, kiss these companies' asses all the time and tell everybody else to shut up, I got news for you. 2023 is going to be a real different landscape. Because clearly it ain't just RetroBlasting anymore.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?